Hi, Drew.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Alfredo.
Hello.
Hi, Franca. Hi, Liz.
Oh,
Let's give it just another minute or so. I think we're still missing one or two. Hi, David. Okay. I think that's everybody. We good to go ahead and get started? Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining the Kearney practice overview and how to apply. We're excited to get to know you a little bit more today and have you get to know a little bit more about our practices. Okay, so before we get started, I wanted to run through a few webinar logistics. Please submit your questions through Slido at the right-hand side of the screen. And if you see a question that you like, feel free to upvote it so we know to get to those first in the Q&A portion. And if you wish to remain anonymous, you can always submit your questions through Gen U in the chat function. And then, of course, if we don't get to your question at the end, feel free to submit any questions to Kearney Careers at mba.kearney.com, and someone from our team will get back to you. So today's agenda, we're going to go through an application overview, a few key dates, and an overview of the process, our interview process. And then each of our consultants is going to run through the practices and how they chose to align to help you as you make your decisions. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. So before we get started, let's meet all of our presenters. Drew, I think I'm going to hand it over to you to kick us off.
awesome. Thanks, Emily. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome on in. My name is Drew DeLong. I am an associate in the Communications, Media, and Technology practice, aka CMT, based out of Dallas, the Dallas office, although I currently live in Nashville, Tennessee. So happy to discuss any of those with you all and excited to talk about my experience coming into the firm, being a summer associate, answering any and all questions you all may have. Hand it off to Liz.
Awesome, thanks. Well, I'm actually from Nashville, Tennessee, but currently out of the Chicago office. And I'm an associate there, just recently graduated from University of Chicago Booth, and was excited to explore throughout the firm. So I aligned to the general practice and have had that opportunity so far. So excited to answer any questions y'all might have about exploring and kind of doing a little bit of a random walk throughout the practice. But I will hand it over to Cody.
Thanks, Liz. I'm Cody. I'm based out of the Washington, D.C. office, aligned with the digital transformation practice. I did not intern with the firm, but I decided to align with the practice when I came in for a full-time position. I graduated from the MBA program at Georgetown University, and I decided to stay in D.C. Happy to talk about the practice and answer any questions you might have about the practice. I'll hand it off to Franca for this.
Perfect. Thanks, Cody. I'm Franca. I'm an associate out of the Toronto office, and I'm aligned to strategic operations, so work on anything that's supply chain operations related, really. I graduated from my MBA at the Rotman School at University of Toronto, and I've decided to stay in Toronto. Happy to answer any questions there as well. Alfredo, over to you.
Thank you, Franca. Hi, everybody. I'm Alfredo. I'm originally from Venezuela, based out of the New York office. Graduated from Sloan a couple of years ago, and I'm aligned with Kearney Analytics. Happy to answer any questions about analytics, the New York office, and the Hispanic and Latin network. Pass it over to my former manager, David Ward.
Alfredo. My name's David. Nice to meet everyone. Engagement manager out of New York. Currently in TNT, recent alignment. I was in general practice for a long time, and so happy to talk about why I stayed general for longer. Had a 6-year career in finance before business school, where I moved into consulting. I did not do an internship. I ran a search fund while I was in business school, so I was busy doing that, but happy to answer any questions about any consulting topic. Thanks. Emily.
Yeah, great. Thank you, guys. I'm Emily Peer. I've been with the firm for about 7 years. I'm a campus recruiting manager, so feel free to ask me any questions about the process, the application, anything like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk through our recruiting process. The application deadline is December 1st. So make sure you mark down that date. Don't want to forget that one. And then if invited to interviews, you'll have 2 rounds. First round will be 1 case and 1 behavioral, each 45 minutes each. And then second round will be 1 behavioral and 2 case interviews, all 45 minutes. And then from a resource perspective, we have our upcoming case interview webinar on November 18th. So feel free to mark your calendars for that one, as well as some sample cases on our website. And feel free to leverage any industry sources that you might want. Okay, and then in terms of application, you're asked for 2 preferences. First is your office preference. You'll want to select your first office preference. We don't recruit into specific offices, so basically whatever you put as your first preference will be the office in which we will align you. There is an option to select 2. I would say that's most likely more for if you're interested in our international offices. So putting more than 1 there. And then we'll ask for your practice preference. So hopefully this webinar will help you with that decision. So you can select up to your top 3 practice preferences of the 6 that we have available. And you'll just I just want to note that, like, if you apply for a practice, there is a possibility of you getting selected and interviewed for that. So make sure if you select a practice that you truly want to align there. and are interested in moving forward. Great. So here are the 6 practices that we'll be recruiting for summer associate: Kearney Analytics, Strategic Operations, T&T, CMT or Telco Media and Technology, Digital Transformation, and then as well as our general practice. So in order for you guys to learn a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Alfredo to talk through analytics.
Fantastic. Happy to share it. And especially as if many of you are thinking of your decision of aligning, or how do I think about aligning to a practice if I join consulting, that's where I was a couple of years ago. So the good thing about Kearney Analytics is that it touches on the different areas where we support the largest companies in I guess in the world, but focus on data and analytics and trying to solve the most complex problems through analytic solutions. We're divided in 4 main areas: operations and supply chain. You may think of plan, source, make, deliver. Those across those 4 towers. Then we have top line, consumer, and growth. Then we have projects that are only focused on analytics, strategy, and transformation. And finally, we partnered with a company we acquired a couple of years ago called Cervelo to do large-scale execution and implementation. Below, we have some examples of the type of client work that we do. I'm just going to speak about the one that I'm most passionate about, which was last year, with one of the largest pharmacy retailers in the US, and they asked us to help with vaccine distribution. So they were receiving their CDC allocation every week, and they didn't know how to make sure that we got all the vaccines across the right stores in the US, and make sure that we also did it equitably and in a way that we took the best advantage of any analytic solutions in the market to get vaccines to the right folks. And we spent 3 months building the model, doing the vaccine allocation, and I was actually owning the model. So starting the first year out of MBA, I was actually being able to have an impact through analytics. And that's more or less what I was looking for, and the reason why I aligned, because I wanted to, leverage some of the background that I had that was focused on analytics, but at the same time, approaching it from a consulting mindset. And that, I based on the pie chart you see to the right, that is a common theme that we see in the folks that are part of Kearney Analytics. We also have our global practice. We leverage resources from Europe, Asia, and communicate with what is going on in the market. And yeah, I can definitely go into more detail offline, but it is a very exciting practice. We're growing a lot, and it is a very cool team.
All right, I guess it's me, strategic operations. So I've been part of, I joined directly into strategic operations, and our practice is really has 4 towers, and we're really expanding as well. So when we think about supply chain and operations, we think of plan, source, make, and deliver. So everything from planning in terms of what comes out, supply planning, demand planning, as well as sourcing. When we think about procurement, when we talk about manufacturing and transportation, we now go into make and then deliver. So last mile delivery, transportation. For me, I joined in SOP directly based off of my background. I came from industry directly into Kearney to SOP. And I came from a logistics and operations background. So for me, the Deliver Tower made 100% sense for me to join in. So some of our clients that we have, that we work with, whether are telco companies, leading beauty companies, health and consumer, food, and other like spirits companies. So I'm sure you've probably heard of them if you ever did work with us. But overall, we work with them, and over COVID, it has been an incredible experience, especially with our retail clients. I came into Kearney knowing a lot about delivery, a lot about transportation, but have had the experience to really go deep into other areas such as planning, sourcing, and even understanding more about the distribution four walls. So if anyone here, if you're interested in supply chain, if you have that kind of background, this is a great place for to be in. We get to work with our clients right on the floor, and it's just amazing to see the type of work as we develop supply chain strategies for our clients. So I'll pause here and I'll let the next person go.
David, I think that's you.
Sorry, yeah, different order than the first. Hey, so happy to talk about TNT, the practice. So it's a newer practice in name, at least at Kearney, and we don't always use this name consistently externally. So just something to be aware of when you're networking with people at Kearney that are in the practice. But essentially, TNT is our strategy practice merged with our private equity industry practice, and so they came together just given the common themes of the projects. As you can imagine, a lot of strategy projects end up being M&A projects, and there's a lot of overlap between diligence and market studies and corporate strategy. So it made sense for that kind of merger to occur. And so today, TNT equally covers both sides of that spectrum. So of the four things kind of listed in the top left, number one and number two are what would be typical to a strategy practice, and number two and four are what would be typical to an M&A practice. And so on the strategy side, we do basically anything that's on the CEO agenda. So this can be corporate strategy, it can be a business strategy for a smaller company that is led by a CEO or president. It can be, we've been doing a lot of like innovation strategy, which is very consistent with kind of the growth agenda we're seeing in the market. So anything like growth related tends to be under this pillar. And then transformations is really kind of the natural next step in that life cycle. So once you've determined the strategy, you need to figure out a plan, usually a multi-year plan to affect it. And so we have value creation here, but this could be anything, right? These could be like non-value creation goals as well. And so our teams here would work with the teams that are empowered by typically the highest levels of the companies to execute on their most important agendas, their strategic agendas. And so our teams will work with them over time to create value in the business, to execute initiatives, to plan initiatives, and measure value. And then so 2 and 4 are kind of legacy private equity capabilities. So we support all aspects of the deal life cycle for both corporations that are active in the M&A market and obviously buy side as well. So private equity companies, hedge funds, minority investors. We're starting to actually make more inroads lately with venture capital as well. I'm actually working currently on a secondment on Kearney's own venture capital fund, and so in the future, I know we're going to be deploying these capabilities into venture as well. And so I kind of alluded to it. Biggest clients, we work kind of cross industry, so any of the topic areas that you see in the above would apply to any industry. We do a lot in consumer and retail because Kearney has a huge consumer retail practice, and so we get a lot of projects and activity from that channel. We also work with the largest PE firms in the world. So if you just Google the top 20 PE firms, most of them happen to be US, so US based as well. We work with probably close to 50% of them pretty regularly. Auto firms, and then of course, we do a lot in healthcare as well. A lot of our health clients have very strategic issues and questions, and so our practice will provide the relevant functional expertise to those projects. And like, as I've kind of been alluding to, the work is pretty varied. So on the M&A side, you can have very short diligence projects to very long kind of post-merger projects or multi-year transformations. Strategy projects tend to be pretty short and pretty intense too. So, back to the upper left, the number 1 and 2 kind of go together, and then 3 and 4 kind of go together in the type of project. The ones on top are longer, they're more intense, they're more ambiguous, typically much more ambiguous, whereas 3 and 4 are more defined, longer, usually a more less ambiguous, and you know exactly what you're doing. You kind of just have to figure it out. I think our practice really encourages CEO level thinking, so we're always trying to deepen our relevance and access to CEO agenda topics. And so that's basically how we grow as a firm, by getting more work to get on the CEO agenda. And so relevance and access are the 2 pillars of that our partners are all thinking about. Access is just relationships and building relationships with CEOs, and that can come from a variety of different formats. And relevance is, what do you have to say to them when you get their time and attention? And so a lot of our non-project work will focus on developing those capabilities. And then just the last point, mix of hard and soft skills for sure. I would say the practice is very like analytically motivated, right? Given the strong emphasis on strategy and traditional kind of private equity capabilities, there's definitely there's almost always a hard analytical component to every project that I've been part of. And then soft skills in the sense that typically your clients are very senior, and so the level of I guess stakeholder management and communications required for that type of client is unique, and so that's why we definitely want spikes on both of those. That's all I had on this one, but we can take any questions at the end, I guess.
Yep.
All right, thanks, David. Hey, everybody. So me again, here to talk comms, media, and technology. So the CMT practice is one of the industry practices here with Kearney. The way we like to think of it is organized in the end-to-end way that we all consume media every single day, right? So from the actual product that we get every single day, right, like our phones, building that and those type of companies, the actual media producers that are making the content and delivering that, and then the actual connectivity that bridges all of our gaps together. So when you think about it as the end-to-end of everything we consume daily, that is the CMT practice. If that is of interest to anybody here anyway, I am happy to discuss, whether it be in the Q&A following up here or offline, and just gonna rapidly run through some of what our clients do, why I love the practice, and all those good things. You've heard it from all the other practice folks already about what type of work we do. Very similar, just apply that to the industry that I just talked about, right? So strategy and growth, cost management, a lot of supply chain stuff, product development. Right now, I personally am on a CMT project doing complete sustainability transformation and looking at a large tech hardware company's carbon emissions and how we can redesign their product to reduce that to help both define and achieve a 2030 target. So it's everything you see on the page here and even more. And then there's a large, I don't think I can emphasize this enough. There is a very large set of clients and none of them are the same, right? So just in the very bottom here, just within technology, which is my home within CMT, semiconductors can break out into 8 different subfields, right? That can maybe anything from chip designers to chip manufacturers to the tooling companies to the logistics to get everything back and forth to the policy work that over governs everything and provides the new incentives like the CHIPS Act. which put about $50 billion into the market this year of incentives. So a lot of cool opportunities, very relevant because we're all consuming content every single day. Yeah, that's CMT practice overview, and happy to discuss any of that.
DT.
That's me. And interestingly, digital transformation practice does a lot of work with CMT clients. You'll see that on the slide that we work with some of the largest telecom companies in the world. So we have an internal structure of how digital transformation is designed, but in terms of what we wanted to communicate today, it's mainly the kind of work that the clients ask Kearney for. So there are three kind of triggers here. One is driving productivity. So this is in the form of data-driven performance improvement or IT restructuring, digital SG&A that drives cost reduction. The second is really enhancing capabilities. Think of something like a digital consumer experience, omni-channel experience for something like a retail or consumer goods client. And third, my favorite is defining new businesses. I say it's my favorite because I'm on a project that's focusing on new business and operating models and looking at new product and service offerings for clients. As I mentioned earlier, we work with some of the largest companies, telecom companies in the world. We also do quite a bit of work with automotive manufacturers, utility companies, consumer goods and retail, as I mentioned, and industrial goods. And this is not an exhaustive list. Digital transformation as a practice works with many of these industries. This is just our sizable presence in each of these industries. Couple of reasons why I decided to align, and for me, the strongest reason is I get to work across industries. I like to have exposure to different industries, and I definitely am seeing that in my current project where I'm working with a healthcare client, where digital is an enabler for them to generate and unlock new revenue streams and unlock new potential from their traditional businesses. And you get access to these professionals across different practices. Digital transformation does a lot of work with Kearney Analytics and Cervelo for data strategy and data analytics work for the clients. And you get to partner with a really global team of digital transformation experts around the world. So it's been a really interesting experience. I just joined a couple of months ago, and it's exactly what David said when you talk about strategy projects being pretty intensive and ambiguous, but at the same time, it's high stakes and there's a lot of visibility, and all the skills that you see in terms of hard skills as well as soft skills, because you're communicating with these really senior stakeholders, really come into play. With that, I would hand it off to Liz for general practice.
Awesome. Thank you. So I am aligned to the generalist practice. And so I really came into this practice to explore all of the different areas that each of my colleagues have talked about before, and others that we have in our firm as well. So others like Chirp and Health that you know, I could potentially align to in the future. And so we get to really explore all function areas and all industry areas. And the purpose is to really, figure out what I want to do and figure out where I want to align within the firm. So I didn't come in with any particular extreme interest. And so I'm here to kind of figure out what that will be for me. And so it really, lets me expand my knowledge and find areas that I didn't think I would explore before. And so it's been really great to just meet a ton of different people within the firm and kind of find my own interests in my own way through, kind of building my own firm. So I think next we have Q&A, if I'm not too.
Yes.
Great.
You are correct. And we've gotten some great questions through the chat, so we can launch into those. I guess first question, some of you mentioned that we are leveraging your background when deciding which practice to align with. Is this something that's required or is it more encouraged? I think Cody, you want to take that one?
Yes, I can take this question. We would say it's definitely encouraged. For me personally, I had digital implementations background prior to business school. I wanted to leverage some of that prior experience, but my business school focus was in strategy and supply chain. And when I looked at different firms, Kearney does a lot of work at the intersection of digital strategy and supply chain. So it's not just one function. Even if you're picking digital, you're not just siloing yourself to just one aspect of digital. You get to experience different angles and aspects to it. So it's definitely encouraged to, if there is something that you could leverage, definitely play to your strengths. And that definitely has worked out for me in the current project that I'm on. I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Yes. Next question. By when does one need to align to a specific practice, or is everyone hired in as a generalist? Liz, do you want to take that one since you're in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently the practices represented here are hiring. So if you are hiring to that specific practice, you would not be coming in as a generalist. You would be already aligned, but there is a generalist position that you could apply to. And so if you do come in as a generalist, like I am, you align at any point what an associate, and then you have to align once you reach the manager position. So if you get promoted, you are aligned as a manager once you hit that point. That's a requirement, but you do have the option to align at any point as a generalist associate.
Great, thank you. We've got a TNT specific question. What skills do you look for? Also, what previous corporate strategy experience can best advantage you for this role? David?
Sure, yeah. Let me start with the former. I think, yeah, any strategy experience you have before is only a plus. I think um, coming from corporate to consulting is like a big jump, I think, for some, especially, I mean, hopefully not through MBA, but definitely probably through the experience hire. It's just like a next kind of another level of rigor and analysis and quality, I think, that goes into some of the outputs. And so hopefully if you've got some strategy experience in pre-MBA or even in the internship, hopefully it's giving you some exposure. A lot of the strategy functions in companies are staffed by former consultants. And so I know I had an experience like that before business school. And it definitely opened my eyes and gave me the way they think, the expectations, the way that they do things was very similar to consulting. So I think I would say anything. And then on the skill side, I mean, nothing's certainly like nothing's you know, people come to consulting from a variety of backgrounds. What you come in with technically, or what you come in with combined with how fast you develop on the job, probably really just more so determines your time to promotion and how fast you progress in the consulting ranks. And so like the way that I would answer the question would depend on what the goal there was, but generally the more the skills that are most relevant are the kind of the ones I walked through. Certainly on the M&A side of things, like the more quant, the better. The more familiar you are with financial statements and finance and strategy coming in, accounting, like all of those things will make you more effective from day one. I had my very first project with Kearney was a DD, even though I wasn't looking to do that, but I had an M&A background right out of undergrad. So it was easy for me to convince someone to take a chance on me in my first project on an M&A project. And so just having a good solid background, I think, led me to perform really well. But I don't think it's required to have those skill sets. And then certainly the comms and the soft skills I mentioned, but those ones are it's bonus if you come in with that from MBA, but I think all of us are developing those every day, even as we go through manager. So that one's less important post MBA.
Great. Thank you. Okay. If we recruit for a particular practice, are all projects from that practice? Just wanted to clarify from like an understanding perspective. Drew, would you want to take that one?
Sure. So when you come in, well, let me rewind. You cut out there at the last like 5 words, and like, can you repeat it? I want to make sure I get the right answer.
I think they just wanted to clarify their understanding of what it means to align to a specific practice.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying. Okay, so aligning to a practice does a couple things. One, it's not a permanent binding solution, and just because I'm in the CMT practice does not mean that I will never be on a single project outside of the CMT practice ever again. Also, if the winds change and all of a sudden I develop a burning passion for automotive, I can switch to the ATI practice, and that is something that Kearney offers, and it's incredibly important to note that. That being said, the flexibility aside, being in a practice, one, puts your immediate staffing responsibility and your people experience manager allocation within that practice, right? So the people of the practice, the leadership in the practice, the people experience team is going to be specifically focused on you, your growth, applying the clients that are currently existing to match with your own personal goals and your professional trajectory within Kearney. So if I were to go tomorrow and I was no longer on this project, I'm going to meet with the partner team. I'm going to meet with the people experience folks and say, look, I'm trying to accomplish A, B, and C. Our current clients that we're staffing up for, include opportunities, here, here, and here. This is what makes the most sense. So that's one. Two, it gives a much more targeted community, right? The amount of work that I do within our CMT practice is pretty extensive. We host gatherings, trainings, what we call all hands, which are large account or practice-wide gatherings once a year. We actually just held ours in Miami 2 weeks ago. But we also held a training for business analysts, senior analysts, associates, and managers in New York a couple of months before that. So you're doing things together as a more tight-knit group, as well as some of the more logistical pieces on top of that. And then I think the last thing I would call out is you're going to be pushed to become a thought leader in that practice as well, right? The amount of external publications, client relationships that I've gotten to develop within the CMT practice is not uncommon, right? So I think everyone here on the call, whether it's SOP, whether it's TNT, or the other groups, will all have experiences where they are now thought leaders in that space. They're being published externally, whether it's on the Kearney website or in op-eds outside, or they are developing specific relationship with clients, going to conferences and more thinking-oriented engagements, right? Where you're going to be positioning yourself as a leader in that specific market. So, and then to return to where I started, right? Just because that is your home does not necessarily mean that the flexibility is not there, but there are some incredible benefits as far as being affiliated with the practices. So,
great. Thank you for that overview. Next question. Could you please speak to the internship experience? How many projects are typical in a summer? And are there any training or networking events? That's not very practice specific, but maybe Liz, do you want to speak to that one quickly from like an internship perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I was an intern last summer, so that's top of mind. Speaking to the internship experience, you're staffed on one project. You have a week of training. It's a 10-week process. You have a week of training when you start, which really helps you, build out some of the expectations that will be placed upon you when you start your first project. So understanding, how to interact with clients and how to be overly communicative with your manager, things like that. So you have those expectations that pretty plain and clear in your first week, and then you're staffed onto a project immediately. And so you should expect to be on one project. There are obviously experiences where people will be staffed on more than one, but that's not typical and not to be expected. But there are throughout the summer a lot of different networking experiences and internship bonding activities. So I think there were two that come to mind for me. One was a boat cruise that we did, which was really fun. And that was both networking and an architecture tour combination. And so that was really fun. And then we also had a volunteer day where all of the interns went on a Friday and worked at the Chicago Food Bank, which was great. And so that was a way to kind of engage with the firm and the social impact side of that. And so that has been my experience with the internship.
Great, thank you. And then if we apply for a particular specific practice, will the cases be related to that practice? Franca, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, so if you're applying directly to a practice and you're interviewing, your interviewers will most likely be from that practice. So the cases will probably be in that realm. Whereas if you're applying for a generalist, like your case could literally be about anything and everything. So not to say that it's 100% guaranteed that, like let's say if you apply to strategic operations, you'll get a case on supply chain. You might get a case on profitability. So I hope that kind of answered the question.
Yep.
It's kind of like a maybe, but you're most likely going to be having a case from you're interviewing with someone in the practice, so they'll be giving a case that they might have worked on in the past.
Most likely testing upon the capabilities that you'll need for the practice. Perfect. And then these kind of two go hand in hand. Which industries is Kearney one of the market leaders? And then could someone share some insights in firm growth and what practices are driving growth for the firm? Does anyone want to take that one?
I can try to take that.
Okay.
Yeah, by industries, so I'll keep it to our industry practices. I don't know if that was clarified, but we have industry and service practices. I think we're definitely a leader in consumer retail. It's I believe, our biggest practice. It's been growing rapidly. We've got some really high profile experts that are featured, across industry bodies and whatnot. And just frankly, like the accounts that we serve are really kind of blue chip marquee accounts. And then I think also parts of CMT, particularly on the comm side of things. And Drew probably knows better, but I think we have most of that industry covered pretty well. And sorry, what was the second part of the question? Oh, they're driving the growth.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of our growth is coming like across the board. It's obviously a hot market, but I believe CMT is doing phenomenally well. I would say though, the growth tends to ebb and flow with what's happening externally, right? And so CMT got hit pretty hard in COVID, and now it's kind of rebounding really strong, particularly with all these inflation price increases. There are lots of money and profit and the industry to go around. Sorry, I meant consumer retail, not CMT. And then on the service side of things, it's the same story. So CEOs have been and private equity buyers have been really active in the market the last few years. So those, like, our practice has grown tremendously well through COVID. But as we enter this kind of slowdown or Fed-induced recession that is supposed to be coming, there will likely be a switch to topics and practices that benefit those topics that are more geared toward like cost reduction. That's what we've seen in the past, and it's more industry wide. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Emily, I just have a few things to add too.
Of course.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, like I would agree with David. CMT is definitely growing. I think with what I didn't mention earlier is that strategic operations is a huge part of the firm, especially as we have multiple towers. SOP is probably one of the biggest practices that we have within the firm. And we're pretty much known globally as being with the strategic operations firm, which we've built a pretty strong brand on. Clients and the work that we've done, especially throughout COVID, we've been a trusted advisor to many clients across the globe, especially as we've helped solve from in the beginning where they were looking at what do we even do, and how do we deal with our issues like with transportation, supply chain delays, and whatnot. Whereas right now, where we've shifted into, especially into the retail space, where we're looking at huge fluxes of inventory that's lying around in a lot of our clients' supply chain. So a lot of thought leaders within their firm, a lot of partners that have also published a lot of their thought pieces. Kearney also, and from the strategic operations practice, we also have something called the State of Logistics, which we publish annually, really showcasing our thought leadership in the space. So wanted to have that little shameless plug there, Emily.
Yeah, you always got to plug your practice for sure. Well, I think we're at time. So thank you so much to our panelists. And before we close out, I just wanted to also have a shameless plug for our upcoming webinars. We will have the Meet Our Kearney Alumni webinar on November 4th. And on November 18th, we'll have an interview prep webinar and run through a few cases to make sure you guys are ready for those and show you what a Kearney case looks like. And like I said at the beginning, if you have any additional questions or we didn't get to your question here, feel free to email us at kearneycareers.mba and someone from our team will get back to you. Thank you guys so much for joining today. Have a great Friday. Bye.